Hello, this is Mrs. Meyer. I'm your student's AP Biology teacher. And now that I have access to the grade book and I've started putting grades in for AP Biology, I wanted to take a moment to explain the grading system in AP Biology again and make sure that the grade book makes a little bit more sense. I told the students that I know I grade in maybe what's a strange or different way, but I think in the end, it's best for students and best for learning. So back in the beginning of the year, when I discussed the syllabus, I said that my learning philosophy had to do with allowing students to continually improve in their learning and not penalize them for early learning mistakes. At the beginning of any unit or topic, it's natural that a student won't understand everything. But I don't want to take points away on the assessments because it's still early on in their learning. So those early learning assignments are not going to be scored, even though they do show up in the grade book. Later on, when it's time for the student to show what they've learned over time, then there will be some other assessments in the grade book that are counted toward their grade. So these pictures here are two pictures from my grade book, which will look very different from what your student or you see in the grade book that you access. But I still think it's helpful to talk about them and give you a better idea of how these different types of assessments might show up in the grades. So the first type of assessment, the one that happens while the student is learning, is called a formative assessment. And these formative assessments show up as this orange or kind of tan color in my grade book. And hopefully you'll see that all of these formative assessments are scored out of 0 points. Here's the points here, and they're all zeros because, again, these are assessments that I'm giving the students in the process of learning. So I don't want to penalize them for what they don't know. The formative assessments all have associated with them a score of a 1, 2, 3, or 4. And I would like it if you and your student would not think of these as grades or percentages or points, but think of them as levels of understanding. Most students start or come into AP Biology with a level 1 or 2 understanding of the topics. And that makes sense. They're new topics for them. They're just starting to learn them. But as we go through and do more formative assessments, I'm hoping to see those scores improve to a 3 or a 4 for a level. A 3 in AP Biology indicates mastery of the content. This is a level that I would expect students to understand to do well on the AP exam. However, there is also a level 4 because students might go above and beyond the expected understanding. They might exceed the standard, at which point it would be a level 4. But again, remember, none of these are worth points. It is not like a 2 is a 50%. It's just an indicator for me to see how the student is learning. So for example, if on the first assignment, the student scored a 2, and then they scored a 3, and then another 3 on those formative assignments, I would feel like the student is making good progress in their understanding. Okay, at first they didn't completely understand everything, but then they got up to standard and they stayed there. As a teacher, that's really important feedback for me to see, and hopefully the students appreciate that as well, so they can see how their own learning is growing. The other two colors of assessments you'll see are these blue assessments and the pink or red assessments. The blue assessments are the content standards, and the red assessments are the practice standards. So content standards are things about AP Biology that students need to know, and practice standards are things in AP Biology students need to be able to do. So for example, the content standard the students are currently working on has to do with evolution in populations, understanding how that can change. Some of the practice standards that students work on all year are ideas like the use of mathematics in AP Biology, analyzing data, supporting a scientific argument, the things that scientists do on a regular basis. Both of these do have scores. So you'll see, for example, this one is out of 7 points, this is out of 10, and this is out of 10. Okay, so both the content standards and the practice standards go into the grade book as points that go toward their final grade. So those are the only ones, the content and the practice, that really affect their grade. With that, both of these, the content and the practice, can get a redo. So redos and retakes and corrections are always possible for content and practice assessments. Again, this goes back to my philosophy of I want students to constantly try to improve their understanding of the material. And for me, redos and retakes encourage students to go back, learn from their mistakes, and to understand the content better. So you'll see the scores in these two areas, the content and the practice, changing over time as students go through the retake cycle. In the picture at the bottom, so this one right here, I just want to point out to you that all of the assignments are paired to actual standards, and those standards, again, come in levels. So this first standard here, which is Big Idea 1 in AP Biology, that has to do with evolution. You can see all the assignments that deal with that standard have a level of understanding with them. 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s. So besides having the typical grade that you would see in the content and practice assessments, there is also going to be a level of understanding associated with those. Those levels don't contribute to the grade or add to the grade, but again, it helps me as a teacher to track how they're doing. The other ones, all of these science practice standards, also have levels, again, that go with them, just like they do in the other part of the grade book, 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s. These, again, will be assessed all year, so I'll be able to track the students' growth in that area. So again, even though this might be a little bit different than what you and the students are used to for grades, I think in the end, it better reflects how students truly learn and helps them be motivated to keep trying to learn more and to be a better student. So hopefully over time this will make more sense, and I think students will really appreciate the deep level of learning that they'll get in this system. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me about anything that you see in the gradebook.